So let's get into it. What really goes down when the penny drops, when that crazy, radical demand from Jesus, why you be the light of the world, stops being some pretty scripture and starts being your breath. We're not talking about being a good person or being nice. Nah, we're talking about a total identity theft job where the you think you are gets busted wide open to reveal what? Just this insane, uncreated, blazing son of a thing that was never born and can never die. This ain't about getting a spiritual promotion. It's about realizing you are the promotion. The light ain't something you switch on. It's what you are once all the junk, the fear, the drama, the whole my life, my problems. Soundtrack. Get seen for the shadow, play it is. When you truly get this, the whole game changes. The world stops being a place you're trying to fix and starts being the very place where your light is shining automatically, no effort, like the sun don't strain to beam. But here's the kicker. The real Joel-style gut punch. If this light is your actual self, then who or what have you been praying to? Who's been begging for what they already are? Think on that. Let it cook. And if this hits something real in you, if you felt that inner click, then don't just sit on it. Feed the algorithm of awakening. Smash that like button, drop a 777 in the comments if this sparked a revelation, and subscribe, 'cause we're just getting started on pulling back the veil, and you're gonna want to be here for what comes next. Peace. Right out the gate, we got to deal with this core illusion, this fundamental mix-up that's got everybody chasing their tail. You see, the entire spiritual search, the whole help me, heal me, save me routine, is built on a single, faulty premise. It's built on the idea that there's a you over here, a separate kind of broken, incomplete person, and that there's a light or God or consciousness over there, and your job is to somehow bridge that gap. You're the beggar, and infinity is the handout. But what if that's the very lie that's keeping you in the dark? What if the problem ain't that you're not enough light, but that you're convinced you're something else entirely? This is the ultimate identity theft, and the wild part is you did it to yourself. Not consciously, of course, but from the jump we inherited, we bought into a stolen identity. We got handed a name, a history, a bundle of reactions and stories and traumas, and we said, yep, that's me. That's my life. This persona, this psychological profile, this mind and body character, that's who you think you are. It's the one with the RA sum A, the fears, the opinions, the aches and pains, the whole biography. And this character is defined by its limits, by its needs, by its sense of lack. It's always on the hunt for more security, more love, more peace, more spiritual experiences. It's the one showing up to pray, to meditate, to plead for a beam of that distant light. But here's the radical, game-stopping truth of that command. Be's the light. It ain't addressed to that character. That character can't be the light any more than a shadow can be the sun. The demand is for that false identity to be seen for what it is, a phantom, a temporary formation, like a wave on the ocean. The wave has a name, a shape, a beginning and an end. It can seem separate, with its own drama, crashing on the shore, fighting with other waves. But its substance, its very being, is and always has been the whole, boundless ocean. The wave was never just the wave. It was always the ocean appearing as a wave. So the theft gets reversed not by building a better, shinier wave, not by getting that wave some spiritual credentials. It gets reversed in a moment of clear seeing, a moment of recognition. It's the shocking, quiet, war-filled realization. I am not the wave, I am the ocean. The I that I truly am is not the biography. It is the very awareness in which the biography, the body, the thoughts and the entire world are appearing. This I has no limits, no biography, no needs, doesn't have light. It is light. Uncreated, unconditioned, just pure luminous being. When this clicks, it's not an intellectual idea. It's a seismic shift in the foundation of your existence. The beggar vanishes because you realize you were never at the door. You were the house, the whole infinite, lit-up house, All that frantic seeking was just the stolen identity trying to validate its own existence. But the real you, that was never lost, never dim, and sure as hell never separate from the source. It is the source appearing right here, right now as this. The search ends because the seeker dissolves into its own true nature. And what's left? Just the Shinin, no one doing it, just the light being itself. And this is where we hit the practical wall, the point where all our spiritual effort tends to break down. Because even when we get a glimpse of that truth, that our real self is the ocean, not the wave, the old habit is fierce. The habit is to take that glimpse and immediately turn it into a new project for the old me. So we think, okay, great, I am the light. Now, how do I act like the light? How do I feel like the light? What are the 10 steps to Shinin brighter? We go looking for the switch. We assume there's a mechanism, a technique, a state of mind we got to achieve. We start monitoring ourselves. Am I being the light now? How about now? Did I just get dim because I got angry? That entire frenzy is just the wave, now with a spiritual complex trying to impersonate the ocean. It's exhausting, because you can't flip a switch on what you've array. The sun doesn't have a bright button. It just is brightness by its very nature. Its shining isn't an activity, it's its existence. In the same way, consciousness, this aware presence that you fundamentally are, doesn't have an on or off setting for being itself. It's always already on. The problem, the only problem, is the layers of belief identification and mental clutter that are superimposed on it, making it seem like there's something else here, something separate that needs to get its act together. It's like having a perfectly clear, luminous sky, that's your natural state, and then spending all your time and energy managing the weather. You're fixated on the clouds, the thoughts, the emotions, the life situations, thinking that if you just arrange them right, then the sky will be clear. But the sky's clarity is unconditional. It doesn't need the clouds to cooperate. Your job isn't to become clear. Your job is to notice that you are the clarity in which clouds of thought come and go. So the instruction, be the light, is not a command to start doing something. It's an invitation to stop doing everything that reinforces the illusion of being the opposite. It's a call to cease the mental labor of trying to manufacture a state that is your eternal fact. When you stop trying to turn it on, what you're left with is what was already effortlessly on. This is the profound rest at the heart of real spirituality. It's the end of the performative, the end of the spiritual hustle. You're not the lamp maker, the electrician, and the light bulb. You're the current itself, and the current just flows. It doesn't strain, it doesn't decide to flow, it's its nature to flow. This means your entire relationship with practice changes. Meditation, prayer, spiritual reading, they're no longer techniques to acquire the light. They become ways to consent to the light you are. They're like opening the curtains, not installing the sun. You sit in silence not to become aware, but because you have our awareness, and in the quiet, the noise that obscures that fact can settle. You read the truth not to get truth, but to remind the thinking mind of what stands prior to thought. Every act becomes one of surrender, of allowance, of letting the inherent nature reveal itself by getting your personal sense of I out of the driver's seat. The switch you've been looking for your whole life. It was the you that was looking. When that seeking, you, relaxes its frantic search, what remains is the illumined presence that was never, for a single second, absent. Now, if this is true, if what you are is that untouched, ever-present light, then you got to get brutally honest about what the rest of this human experience actually is. All the drama, the heartbreak, the anxiety, the triumphs and tragedies, the whole spinning carnival of life, what is it, really? If the sun is your true self, then all of this is just weather. It's the shadow play. This is the critical pivot to stop seeing the world of appearances as a command, and to start seeing it for what it is, a projection on the screen of your own awareness. not as something to ignore, deny, but to see through. The wave gets tossed around, thinks every other wave is a threat or a savior, believes in the story of its own crash onto the shore. But the ocean, it holds it all, without being disturbed by any of it. Your reactions, your tightness, your sense of being a somebody caught in a very real, very difficult situation, that's the wave's perspective. It's the identification with the content on the screen. You're convinced the movie is real, so when a monster shows up, you scream. When you lose something in the plot, you grieve. You're invested. But be the light means recognize you are the screen. The screen doesn't fight the monster. The screen doesn't lose the lover. The screen remains pristine and unchanged, while any and every image plays across it. The pain isn't in the image. The suffering is in the mistaken belief that you are the image, and not the space in which it appears. This is the ultimate empowerment, but it doesn't look like the world's idea of power. It doesn't mean you become a passive zombie. It means your center of gravity shifts irrevocably. From the content to the context, you'll still feel because feeling is part of the movie, a beautiful, poignant, human part. But you won't be had by it in the same way. There's a part of you that knows, even in the thick of the scene, this is a movement in me. But it is not me. The fear arises, but you are the space awares of the fear. The thought of lack screams, but you are the silence that hears the scream. The body feels pain, but you are the awareness that witnesses sensation without being defined by it. You are the unchanging witness, the allowing presence, the very substance of the screen itself. This transforms everything. Your problems don't get solved on the level of the movie plot. Sometimes the plot gets worse, but they cease to have the power to define what you are. The boss yells, the bank account dips, the diagnosis lands, and a deeper knowing whispers, "This, too, is an image on the screen of me." It doesn't make it pleasant, it makes it transparent. You stop fighting shadows. You stop believing the storyline is the final truth of your being. You engage, you act, you live your life, but from a place of profound inner freedom, because you know you are not any of the roles you're playing. You're the actor who can play the part of failure or success, health or sickness, joy or sorrow, without ever forgetting you are the actor and not the script. The shadow play loses its authority. It's seen as a temporary passing show, while your identity rests in the permanent, unchanging light that projects it all. The world becomes something happening is within your awareness, not something outside of it that you have to desperately manage or please. And this leads us to the most liberating and often misunderstood aspect of this whole deal, the end of the personal project. Once you see through the shadow play, you realize that your fundamental nature, that light, doesn't operate on a system of effort and reward. It doesn't need your management. Its shining isn't something you ever do. It's something that happens through you when you get told you out of the way. This is what we mean by automatic Shinin. The sun doesn't wake up in the morning, crack its knuckles and say, "All right, time to put in the work to beam today." It just beams by its very essence. In the same way, when the center of your identity shifts from the wave to the ocean, from the character to the screen, action in the world stops being about my will, my effort, my control, and starts being a spontaneous expression of the intelligence that you are. This is where a lot of spiritual types get nervous. They think, if I'm not in charge, if I'm not making it happen, then nothing will happen. I'll just sit on the couch and the universe will have to handle my bills. But that's a complete misunderstanding. That fear is still coming from the old, separate me, who thinks it's the only source of action. What we're talking about is a much more intelligent, fluid, and responsive kind of action. It's not inaction. It's inspired action. It's the kind of movement that arises when you're no longer clogged up with personal agenda, fear of failure, or a desperate need for a specific outcome. You become a clear conduit. Ideas flash, intuition guides, doors open or close, And you move without the usual drama of second, guessing or taking credit. Think of it like this: your hand writes. The writing is an action. But the intelligence that coordinates the muscles, the thought that forms the words, the life force that powers the movement, that's not coming from the hand. The hand is just the instrument. It's the same for you. When you know yourself as the light, as the ocean, you understand that you are the instrument of a far greater intelligence. Your job isn't to generate the shining. Your job is to not interfere with it, to not superimpose your small story-driven, fear-based plans onto the situation. You show up, you bring all your skills and your humanity to the table, but you do it with an open hand, listening, following the nudge, trusting that the same consciousness that formed galaxies is perfectly capable of handling the details of this conversation, this job, this relationship. Life becomes a dance, not a construction project. You're not building a castle brick by anxious brick. You're flowing with a current that knows where it's going. Your actions become precise, timely, and often surprisingly effortless, because they're not fueled by the ego's grinding willpower. They're moved by a grace that you are one with. You might work harder than ever, but it won't feel like work in the old, burdensome sense. It will feel like a natural outpouring, like a tree putting out leaves. The tree doesn't strain to leaf, it just expresses its treeness when the conditions are right. You express your Christ, nature, your light of the world, ness, not by trying but by as being, and then letting the doing flow from that being. The shining happens by itself. You are both the source of it and the humble witness to its mysterious, automatic unfolding. This brings us to the quiet, internal revolution that has to happen in your prayer closet. For most of our lives, our spiritual dialogue has been built on that same core mistake of separation. We've been spiritual consumers. We get on our knees or we sit on our cushion, and from the position of being the wave, incomplete, lacking, broken, we send out orders, wishes and pleas to some bigger, better wave we call God. Give me peace, heal my body, fix my kid, send me a sign. It's a transaction. A negotiation between two supposed separates. But I'm asking you to sit with this bombshell: if your true identity is the ocean itself, if we are the very substance of the light, then who is praying to whom? This is the prayer paradox. The beggar is asking for a loaf of bread, all the while standing knee deep in his own wheat field, wearing blinders. The moment you begin to truly grasp, I am the light, the entire architecture of petitionary prayer collapses. It becomes absurd. It's like your finger feeling lonely, deciding to write a letter to the hand asking for connection and purpose. The finger is the connection and purpose of the hand. It's an expression of it. To ask is to already deny the living fact. This is why Joel would talk so much about contemplative prayer, about listening, about yielding. He wasn't talking about a better way to get your list filled. He was pointing to the dismantling of the one who makes the list. Real prayer isn't you talking to God. It's the point where you stop talking long enough for God to be you. It's the surrender of the fictitious asker into the reality of the all-ness that is already the case. So what do you do in the silence? You don't come with a shopping cart. You come to be shopped. You relax the frantic mental activity of the seeker. You release the very idea that there's a you here that needs something from over there. You sink back, not into a thought, but into the aware presence that is prior to thought. You let the truth, I am, resonate, not as words, but as the ground of your being. In that space, prayer flips. It's no longer an act of asking. It becomes an act of acknowledging. You're not begging for peace, you're consenting to the peace that constitutes your very nature, which the mind's noise had covered up. You're not pleading for supply, you're recognizing yourself as the infinite, generous source out of which all forms appear. The blindness falls away and you see the wheat field. The feeling isn't, I have received, but that which I sought. This transforms your entire life into a walk-in, live-in prayer. Every moment becomes an opportunity to remember, to recognize the ocean in the wave, the screen in the movie, the source in the situation. A problem arises, and instead of the old knee-jerk, "God, fix this!" the new silent prayer is a turn-in within. I am the harmony, the intelligence, the substance in which this appearance is taken form. I rest in what I am, and let that truth resolve the image. You're not asking a separate power to come down and change the play. You're affirming the power and perfection of the stage itself, knowing that as you do, the play must conform to the nature of the stage. The paradox dissolves when the asker dissolves, and all that's left is the answered. So we land here, at the final boss of the spiritual journey, the demand itself. Not try to be, not act like it, not aspire to it later when you're holy enough, be it. This is the full stop command that cuts through every excuse, every delay, every bit of spiritual procrastination. It leaves no room for the old story. It doesn't care about your past, your qualifications, or your wounds. It's a present, tense imperative addressed directly to the heart of your being right now. The reason it feels so radical, so almost impossible, is because our entire life has been an exercise in Tryin. We are experts in the effort, the process, the gradual improvement. We love a good map, a 7-step plan, a ladder to climb. Be it throws the map in the fire and says the destination is already where you're standing. This is the core of the mystical path, be. In the biblical sense, I am. This is the name, the vibration, the very substance of God. So when Jesus points to you and says, "You be that," he's not handing out a chore. He's stating a fact you've forgotten. The demand is for you to stop living from the lie and to start abiding in the truth that's always been operational. The struggle isn't in becoming the light. The struggle is in letting go of the Herculean effort of not being, the effort of maintaining the separate self, the wave convinced of its own smallness. All your spiritual practices, your reading, your meditation, they weren't meant to build the I am. They were meant to burn away everything that isn't it, so that the I am stands revealed, unobstructed. Think of a piece of wood in a furnace. The fire doesn't carefully, gradually try to become the wood. It is the consuming of the wood. The command, be the fire. To that log would be the demand for it to yield its very structure to the flame. That's what's being asked of you. Yield. Stop protecting the structure of the personal me. Let the truth of your infinite nature consume the boundaries you've taken yourself to be. This isn't a violent destruction. It's the most natural homecoming there is. The log doesn't lose anything real. It loses its limitation and becomes what was always meant to express heat, light, and power. Therefore, your entire orientation flips. You're no longer a seeker headed toward a goal. You are the goal, pacing around, wondering where it went. The work is no longer acquisitive, it's evaluative. You don't reach for God. You relax into the God you are. Every moment becomes a choice point. Will I identify with the story of the wave, my problems, my opinions, my drama, or will I be the ocean, the vast, still, including presence that holds it all? Will I listen to the mind's chatter about lack, or will I be the boundless abundance in which the thought arises? The command meets you at every crossroads. It's not a one-time achievement. It's a moment-by-moment surrender. You fall out of it 100 times a day, caught in the shadow play, and the demand simply whispers again, be it, come back, abide. Recognize the switch was never there to flip. The only thing ever required was to cease the frantic, lifelong effort of pretending you're in the dark. Stop trying. And in that stopping, in that profound and active yielding, what you are shines forth on its own authority. It was never else.